You're listening to Cool Girl Talks, a Her Campus podcast based out of the University of Victoria. I'm Kate Harder, and today we're talking rebellion. Now, rebellion is formally defined by the Oxford English Dictionary as an organized armed resistance to an established ruler or government, an uprising, a revolt. So famous movements such as the French Revolution, the 2010 Arab Spring, or most recently the Women's March on Washington might all come to mind as prototypical acts of rebellion. But a rebellion doesn't have to involve overthrowing the government or a mass globally recognized protest, and it certainly doesn't always have to imply armed resistance. By this standard, the Women's March wouldn't even make the cut as a rebellion. But intrinsically, something like the Women's March on Washington feels like it should be categorized as a rebellion. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is that the idea that we have in our head about what a rebellion is has taken on a much more general meaning. Take, for instance, teenage rebellion. That's just a bunch of kids listening to punk rock and ignoring the advice of their parents. And so the Oxford English Dictionary does have a second definition of rebellion, which is an open or determined defiance of or resistance to an authority, controlling power, or convention, an instance of this. So really what it comes down to is some act whereby you push against the powers that be to some extent. In cases like the Women's March, that was a pretty large push. But if you're talking about, say, sneaking into the movie theater or sneaking out of a house as a teenager, these are pretty small, rather harmless acts of rebellion. But enough about the formal semantics and definitions of rebellion. What I really am interested in is why do we rebel? Especially in cases when we're not fighting against some clearly unjust rule. Why are we pushing the boundaries and breaking rules? So here today to discuss rebellion with me a little further and delve into the social psyche of what it is that leads us to rebel is Rachel Watson.
Hey guys.
Emma Dubois.
What's up?
And our special guest, Caroline Allen.
Howdy.
So Caroline, we're going to start off with you as you are our guest rebel for today's show. And tell us a little bit about a time that you were rebellious, because, I mean, you have a septum ring. For those, obviously you can't see Caroline, but Caroline looks like a total rebel when you first view her. She's got, like, curly hair, just, like, wild look in her eyes, septum ring.
Well, I think what Kate's trying to say is she asked me to be on the show because I don't wear a bra. I think that's what really marked me as a rebel in her eyes.
Yes.
But that's a whole spectrum. I think there's a lot. Like I was inclined to talk about those different kind of markers against traditional femininity, which I think can be, for me, are my daily acts of rebellion is kind of rejecting those. But I think for the sake of this podcast, the classic teenage rebellion comes to mind, like my first instance of disobeying my parents. And Mom, sorry if you're listening, but what came to mind for me instantly was my first love.
Oh,
so cute.
He didn't love me back.
Of course not. They never can. They never can.
Exactly. But I have a pseudonym for him here. Okay. I'm going to refer to him as Kevin Clancy.
Okay.
But this was when I was like 14 or 15, and I had never lied to my parents. Honestly, I really haven't since. This was kind of the time. But he was a senior and I was a freshman, so that was like already felt pretty rebellious, right? And we were texting. Nothing had really happened yet between us. We were texting one night. It was a school night. A school night, that's like the stage for all good rebellions, right? School nights. It was a school night, and I was, it was 11:11, so I texted him.
Make a wish.
I texted him my wish.
Oh, dear.
I wish that Kevin Clancy would throw a rock at my window and sneak me out of the house. But I didn't think it would really happen.
That's risky.
Risky, right? 45 minutes later, rock at the window. I look down, there he is, in all of his senior and high school glory.
Did he have a leather jacket on too? Did he like show up on a Harley?
I'd like to say, but in reality, he was like drunk and like with his best friend and like kind of barely paid attention to me. But I like crept down the stairs. My house is over 100 years old, so that was no small feat. Had my bathrobe on still because I thought that would be cute, even though, like, I had time to think about what I was going to wear.
And this was your first act of rebellion?
Yeah. Wait,
you sound like a professional.
Yeah, like, some people just got it.
You practiced creeping down those stairs before.
Sends a risky text like it's no big deal. Shows up casually in a bathrobe. Like, you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, well, I will say, to the creeping down the house, in retrospect, my mom's hearing has never been that great. So I think I was, this is sounding all, like, very much more stealthy than it was. And also we have, like, a side door in the basement, you know, like, it was actually kind of all lit up for me. Anyway, we just, like, went to the local elementary school and swung while he and his swings. Drunk best, on some swings, we swang. Yeah. Not dancing, that would have been cool. And, like, he and his best friend were just, like, talking, and I was nervous. And then after about 10 minutes, I said, I gotta get back. I have school tomorrow. So
I love it. Whatever happened to Kevin?
Well, we hung out 2 more times over the next 3 months, which, you know, was punctuated by long periods of him ignoring my texts. He went on to be my first kiss.
Okay. Ooh, cute. So a success story, really.
Yeah, that is successful.
Yeah, success. Yeah. Yes, one could say.
Yeah.
But he was kind of, can I say bad words on here?
Yeah,
he was a total douchewad, if you will. Because he like eventually just ghosted. My first rebellion, my first kiss, my first being ghosted.
Wow.
First of many, you know? What can I say?
Just like good story for a lot of firsts.
Yeah, I hope this somehow gets back to Kevin Clancy.
Yeah, what would you want to say to him?
Well, I've had fantasies about running into him and, like, pouring a McDonald's, like, large sweet tea on his head or something.
Yes. I had no idea where that was going.
It's always a sweet tea in my fantasy.
Sweet tea. Is that iced tea?
Yeah.
Caroline is from America.
I was going to ask because you said sophomore and junior, and I was like, what?
I'm sorry, you guys. Yeah. And I also said howdy, which maybe y'all don't say. I don't know.
That's okay.
Say howdy.
Okay.
It's all good.
We do? Who?
I do.
I think people in Alberta, maybe.
I don't know.
Anyways.
But yeah, I'm clearly not over it in the sense that I would still pour a drink on his head. But at the same time, I think, like, beyond the person, that really facilitated that primordial rebellion for me, which is like I felt like that was so formative for me to actually, because my mom and I are super close, and you know, nowadays I would tell her that had happened, but I think it's also important to do some things for yourself, especially when you're 14 years old. So that was cool for me. So actually, Kevin, thank you. Kisses, all the kisses.
So your mom never found out?
I guess not.
Have you told her since?
I guess not. I think my dad knew because later this happened twice that I snuck out, and the other time went on.
Was it also with Kevin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Over those the 2 other times, one was also in secret with his drunk best friend. But that time I stupidly, like, brought in the newspaper. Like, I got back at, like, 5 a.m. I think I just, like, I felt so cool. I kind of wanted my dad to know how cool his daughter was. So I brought the newspaper in.
You, like, look, Dad, I snuck out of the house, and I brought you the newspaper. So, like, model daughter and rebel at the same time.
In reality, though, it was because, like, he kissed me on the porch, and then I thought it would be so cute to pick up the paper and then go in the house.
Oh.
So that's what happened. But, yeah, Dad knew. Mom, maybe now she knows.
Maybe she's always known.
Maybe she's always known.
Yeah.
You're going to
That's
get a text after this is, like, gone up. She's going to be like...
So that's what I heard that night. I thought I heard them creaking down the stairs.
Well, thank you so much, Caroline, for that story. That was excellent. So now we're going to move on to our discussion, which the lovely Emma has written some really excellent questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emma, I'll let you take it away.
Well, I think we've just had really good lead-in into our first question, which I just want to bring this to the table. What do you guys think it is that drives us to rebel when we're young or when we're in different stages of life? But I guess we were talking about when we were young, so if you want to focus there, that could be good. What do you think?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, that I think that those experiences are really crucial at the age where we're starting to define who we are, right? And like what kind of person do we want to be, and what are our morals, and we don't have a chance to explore that.
And I also feel like at that age, we're pushing away from our parents being our like main social circle, and we're really trying to get to that like identifying with our peers point. And like if you don't sort of push those boundaries, you aren't ever going to really get to that point of like understanding or like feeling like you fit in. I think that's like another big thing too.
Yeah, I think for me, what actually drove me to rebel, because I wasn't rebellious, I listened to my parents, I was quite shy, was the expectation to rebel. That you get to this certain age and then you have to rebel. If you're not lying to your parents saying you're going to your friends for a sleepover and then sneaking out to go to a party, what are you doing? Like, that's what you were supposed to do. So
I think
that's
to
what
a
I
certain
did.
degree, parents even expect that of their
Yeah.
kids, right?
Yeah, I know somebody whose mother would be like, why aren't you sneaking out? I don't understand what's wrong with you kind of thing, right? So by that definition, like, does that mean that rebelling is no longer a rebellion?
Ooh.
I don't know. Yeah, because it's like, are you just doing what your parents are
Is
expecting?
it what you're supposed to do?
Well, I mean, is rebellion just against the standards of someone? Because if you're rebelling, if all rebellion is just going against someone's standards, then nearly everything you do is a rebellion, because everything you do isn't going to fit someone else's standard.
That's true, but I feel like normally when you are like rebelling, it's because you have a very particular person in your mind of like who you're going against, or like a very particular concept that you're trying to go against.
Yeah,
you know?
that's fair.
All right. I think those are some good points. So go ahead.
I kind of want to address the second part of your question, though, because like it's not just when we're kids, right?
Other stages.
Yeah, and I think that's so cool about how we can grow throughout our lives, and as we, cause my ideal for my life is to always be growing and changing, and I think rebellion is the site of that growth, because without that thing that you reject, or that thing that you can take a stand against, then you never really get anywhere. So I think like when we're young, we set the stage for that, but my hope for all of us is to kind of keep getting to do that throughout our lives.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're boring.
Yeah, because I feel like it's not just teenage rebellion. It's like, no.
Midlife crises?
Midlife
That's
crises?
like rebellion, right?
Yeah, my dad's friend started growing peppers and midlife, and then another one started making jams, and that was their like weird little rebellions, I guess.
But it kind of is, right? Against like what are you comfortable with?
Those
like,
are totally against normal male standards. Like starting a
That's
pepper
true.
garden and making some jam as a hobby. Those go,
Those are super, and especially
Quite
like
far.
at that point, like in your like midlife,
like
it's
40s,
oh yeah, just a 40-year-old man that makes jam. Like,
And both of those hobbies only lasted about a year, maybe less. And then they were like, oh, okay, well, that was that.
Just a way to get through whatever it was that
Yeah.
drew them to that form
guess.
of rebellion.
Sitting here, I was thinking, I was like, when is the last time I rebelled against something? And it was actually just before we came in here. And I don't know if it really counts as rebellion, but it felt like it to me. So I was getting my scone that I bought at the cafe, and I looked to my right, and there is a tea bag on the floor in its packaging. And of course my instinct is to like give it back to them, right? Because like that's not mine, I didn't buy it. And I made this split-second decision to pick it up and stuff it in my pocket. So right now I have a tea bag that I didn't steal, but I also didn't buy in my pocket. And that's the last time I rebelled. And it like, at first I felt bad about it, now I'm like, I don't care. So what?
I mean,
So
Pretty cool.
the university has a lot of money. Like,
my tiny act of rebellion was just a tea bag.
Just a tea bag.
just a tea bag could be enough to make you feel like a badass for the
Yeah.
day. So like, you can walk around with that tea bag in your pocket, like loud music blaring, just like.
I'll write an angsty poem about it later.
Yes.
Well, that's a good lead into another question, which is, what do you think it is that makes rebellion kind of sexy and attractive? Because it is in media. Usually we see figures who are rebellious and we think, that's either
the bad
admirable
boy.
or that's like super sexy.
And especially, like, I mean, with Caroline's story that you just told us, like, were you attracted to Kevin Clancy because he was a bad boy?
Absolutely. I mean, he wasn't scared to throw the rock at the window of my mother's house. Like that. He's
He
the
could've-
real rebel of the
He
story.
could have
Yeah.
broke the window.
Yeah, God, then where would we be?
So why do you think that's attractive? Why do you think that was interesting?
I mean, I think we all have that drive inside of us to rebel, like, because, I mean, for me, I don't think it's right the way that the world imposes so many standards on us. So I think when we see someone else doing it, it's inspiring, right? And it's so appealing because you think, like, I want that for myself, in myself. Or that person maybe can show me that world. I don't know. For me, because when I experience that, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I think it opens a door to the world of rebellion. If you see someone else who's in that position, it's then almost giving you a guiding light into that.
And
Yeah,
you're
What
kind of,
is
sanctions
that?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what you don't currently have in your life.
and you're kind of like, wow, like, if they can do that, then, like, I can do it
that.
too. You're like, well, if they're doing it, then I can do it, and I shouldn't get in trouble because I can also just say that they're doing it. Like, yeah, it is definitely. And I mean, I feel like every, like, show has some sort of bad boy in it. And even earlier I was joking with Rachel about, like, how Jughead in Riverdale, like, he instantly becomes more attractive when he is suddenly a serpent and, like, this bad boy instead of the weirdo that he started off
Well, that's
as, like...
Oh, yeah. Well, I just want to say, because Jughead it's kind of a hot button issue for me, because I grew up reading Archie comics, and Jughead was my first crush, actually. And, you know, Jughead's really different in the comics. But even so, I think he's a rebel no matter what, if he's a serpent or if he's this kind of asexual dude that likes to eat, which is, you know, that's canon Jughead.
Wears a stupid hat.
Oh, yeah, or freaking sexy, whatever way you want to parse it. But you know, like, that's still rebellion. It doesn't have to, for me, it doesn't have to represent this kind of classic bad boy thing so much as, like, someone who is doing them and, like, just following what they want despite Ethel. Did you guys read the comics?
Yes.
Despite,
Yeah.
I don't know if Ethel's in the show, but despite freaking Ethel always trying to get Jughead to do A, B, and C. No, that guy just wants a hot dog, you know? And that's hot. but sorry, what were you
No,
gonna
I was
say?
just gonna say that another thing about the media's portrayal of these rebellious people, is that they're never unattractive. Like, is the bad boy in the show ever unattractive? No. Is the girl that's, like, a little bit off, is she ever unattractive?
That's
no,
so
she's
true.
gorgeous.
So in that
Very
sense,
true.
like, is
We're
it really
conditioned-
rebellion?
Well, like, we're just conditioned to associate rebellion with attractiveness, and that's been so ingrained in media. So when someone rebels in the outside world, whether they're attractive or not, there's probably that little reminder in the back of our mind that's like, oh, rebellion's hot.
I mean, even if you go back to, like, Jane Austen and, like, look at her, like, bad boys, like, they are always, like, the scoundrel, like Wickham in Pride and Prejudice. Like,
Frickin'
obviously he was portrayed as a babe, but, like, he was, like, the original bad boy. And, like,
Hate
he's
him.
not a good person, though, but, you know.
We're not condemning. Or we are condemning.
We are condemning.
We are condemning, we're not condoning.
Yeah, there we
We
go.
condemn the actions of Mr. Wickham.
Thanks for getting me there.
Anytime.
That was like, those are some really good observations on how we look at rebellion in the media, actually. Yeah. So those associations are with a kind of rebellion that's kind of doing bad things, being a bad boy. So does that mean that rebellion is does that make it bad, or does that make it a good thing, or can we say what's morally right when it comes to rebellion?
Well, I guess I meant my Jughead comment to kind of address that. I mean, overall, well, we'll get to that, but I think the way that the world is set up, or the way that our North American society is set up, to me, like, rebellion is what maybe a lot of times it feels like it's bad, or it feels, it's disruptive, or people frame it as bad or wrong. But I think just even the most simple rebellions of doing what makes you happy, or doing something like pointing out instances of injustice, all of these really beautiful and right acts that are by nature of our society are rebellious acts. Maybe that kind of doesn't speak. Yeah. So to that, I don't think that there's any inherent right or wrongness to rebellion, but what is it against? What are you rebelling against? That kind of sets up that moral, because rebellion is a dichotomy, right? So it kind of sets up what that moral paradigm.
Yeah, it's sort of like, are you pushing against a societal norm that you view to be unjust, or are you like breaking the rules? Like, is your view of rebellion something like breaking a law, or
just
like
because
do it? Yeah, which I would almost say,
cool,
like,
too.
I think
like me taking the tea bags, so rebellious and really going for social justice.
But you could go there and be like, I need this tea. Is my need? Should I prioritize the imposed right and wrong of this? Whatever. I don't know if the shop that you were at is university owned or whatever, but I mean,
it's not. I've never stolen university property. It's
so like this rich ass institution. Like, take your tea bag. I think it can be more than just, I'm just gonna pick up the tea bag because I want it.
And at the same time, who's to say if you were like, I found this tea bag on the floor, likely food safety would have forced them to throw it out.
That's true.
There you have.
It was still in its packaging.
Yeah, but they might have still thrown it out. Like, usually they're like,
they'd be having the most ridiculous
So
rules.
really, I'm glad that I took it.
So yeah, you were definitely making
a moral call.
Morally,
this is what we're really here for, to make me feel better about stealing a tea bag. What I think is important behind rebellion, and whether it's, right or wrong, is the intention behind the actions. And that's pretty much with any action we do in life, whether it's rebellious or not. What makes it good or bad, if we can even build those boundaries, is what's the intention behind it. So are you, like you guys said, are you stealing something? Are you being rebellious just because? It's not a good reason to be rebellious. That's an asshole reason to be rebellious. Are you doing it in the name of injustice? Fuck yeah. Like, then you're doing it with good intentions, right? So I think it's the intention is important in making rebellion just or unjust.
I have to say I disagree. I think
you disagree?
I think impact is, in the question of intent versus impact, I think like what the impact of your actions is really what, this is less of a rebellion oriented question, but like in terms of a moral compass, like I think that's what matters in the end. But
like, what will be the end result? Like the cause, who are you affecting?
Yeah. Like, I don't think that the means necessarily justify
the ends justify the means.
Wait, okay. I got lost on the colloquialism, but yes, I think if you're, because I don't think you had the intent when you picked up the tea bag. This tea bag example is going to be everything.
It's going so far.
I don't think you necessarily had the intent to be like, fuck the university, they withhold everything.
Absolutely not.
But that could be your impact, and that's dope as hell. So
okay,
that's true.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think that makes sense, because it's just like when you were earlier talking about not wearing a bra. That could just be because it's uncomfortable to wear a bra.
Yeah, but the result is
makes people
magnanimous. It's
It's big.
Yeah.
Yes, big stuff. Big stuff is happening on his chest.
Oh, I love it. I also just love. So for the listeners, Rachel, myself, and Caroline are all in linguistics. So just the number of times we've corrected ourselves on words and colloquialisms is excellent.
A little ironic. Yep.
It was kind of funny. But yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
But also I wanted to say, coming back, when we were talking about sort of the like impact versus intention, and like that made me think about then the media portrayal, like going back to the media portrayal of a rebel, like the stereotypical bad boy. I feel like they are acting with neither sort of a good impact result or a good intent. Like they just end up being usually the dick of the entire story.
They
Not
sure
always.
are sexy.
But they're still sexy.
Not
So it's
always.
like,
Pretty Little Liars. The rebel, he is living in the high school or something like that. So he looks greasy as hell
Just like
because he doesn't have a choice.
Isn't that happening?
that's a plot point in
So-
Riverdale.
I'm just saying that sometimes the bad boys have backstories.
It's usually they're usually
true.
the
They
downtrodden. They're
yeah.
usually
Yeah.
from
They
the
usually
wrong
do
side of
have
the
a-
tracks. Like
so they have maybe some intention of just survival.
yeah.
And is survival a proper intent or a right intent to instigate rebellion?
I like that concept because it juxtaposes rebellion with the privileged, and it really highlights that rebellion is this inherently revolutionary.
It's in all of us. It's
is.
primitive in a way, or it's become that way in all of us. I mean, we all have our stories of rebellion, going from childhood through to being teenagers, and even now with my stupid tea bag. We rebel all through our lives.
yeah.
So
And I mean, even if you are like the most angelic person ever, I'm sure you get a little secret rush every time you like maybe put the gas on a little faster so that you can get through the yellow.
It's all relative. We all have
that
our
still does.
You
that,
know?
that gets me a little like
Yeah, I'm
riled
like,
up. I'm not gonna lie. So I do it.
Yeah.
I typically follow
Allegedly,
rules.
we do no crimes.
Going through a yellow is not a crime. It's just, it's
I
a
think
little
you
rush.
can get a ticket for it if it turns if it turns red while you're going through
I'm
it.
a new driver, so let me get my notebook out. I need to be taking notes on this.
But that's just what someone told me.
Not the point, but my driving instructor did say if you see a yellow, you should be slowing down, trying to stop,
Not succeeding.
not trying
The
to get through the yellow.
intent. It's the intent that matters. If you thought about slowing down, but you still went through the light, what was good intent? I'd say so.
What was the impact? You made
Again,
it to class
we-
on time. There we go. Good impact.
Good impact.
All right.
So, I think I was going to go somewhere, but I don't know where. So I think let's round this off with a final question that goes out to every single one of you here. Do you think that you are a rebel? Kate, do you want to start?
Sure. So, like, originally going into this podcast, I was like, nah, I'm not a rebel. I'm, like, this sweet little angel. Like, I come across as this, like, perfect little child. Sure, obviously, like, I've had a few, like, scandalous times, but, like, nothing, like...
Haven't we all?
But haven't we all? Nothing major. But now, like, thinking about it more in terms of, like, social justice warrior rebel, I'm sort of like, okay, yeah, like, I do like to push against, like, the social boundaries to a degree. I think, like, from a very young age, I, like, declared that I was a feminist. Like, I think I was, like, 8 years old, and I was like, Mom, I'm a feminist. And she was like, cool, like, you do you. And I was like, all right, sweet. And also, I think within my own sort of family structure, like, there was a lot of hope that I would be a doctor and, like, go into medicine. It was something my mom definitely, like, Mom, I love you. I know we've had this discussion before, where she really wanted me to go and become a medical professional. And that was just like, I was like, that ain't me. Like, sorry, Mom, I'm not doing that. And I guess, like, that's rebellious in a way. I would say that is an act of rebellion. So, yes, I am a rebel in a sense.
Nice.
Carol?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think I really strive to be that in my daily life. Like, I always every morning ask myself, like, what am I doing and why am I doing it, and what's the impact of those choices, and what's my ideal world. I think that, I mean, that sounds really like be the change you wish to see in the world, but But yeah,
But do it.
I think
Okay,
that's
Wendy.
like the right way to
Yeah.
live I feel that's the right way to live life. So yeah, I hope to be, and I want to. The more you go, the more you rebel, the more you realize like how much more you can rebel. So it's only the beginning, baby.
You heard it here first. Rachel?
I don't know. And if you guys that know me know that I'm fairly indecisive, it's really hard for me to pick like a left or right or a yes or a no.
Well, rebel. And
I
don't
have a
give us
hard
one of
time. In some ways, sure. Like in some ways, I think I'm not stereotypical. Not that it's a big deal in Victoria, but I've got tattoos. I've got some piercings, which is like kind of the classical symbols of rebellion. But I follow rules. Quite like stop laughing.
I loved the honesty. That's
I
why
do.
I was laughing.
I follow rules and not ones that would have a negative impact on people. If something's not right, then obviously it's not right, and I have no problem rebelling against that. But I wouldn't say I go into the world trying to find those situations where I can go against it. Always. That's not my daily intent. That's not really what I seek for. Not that I don't like it. I don't know. I have a problem with confrontation. So anything that involves possible confrontation, it's my instinct to
on that,
completely
yeah.
avoid. So it's not like I don't think the rebellious things. I don't consider doing those acts. It's that if it's going to cause confrontation, it takes me a second longer to actually accept that as my action. But, going to the Women's March, things like that, like, I'm all for that. Like, I find that stuff, if those are acts of rebellions, like, I'm all for that. But in my daily life, I don't know, I follow rules.
Yeah.
I think.
That's super. I am also a rule follower.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
me
even
too.
like to talk while a professor is talking
No.
like in class. It makes me like physically really
I did that so many
uncomfortable.
times with you today
I know,
in
and
class.
I was like, don't talk to me.
Full transparency, I also don't like confrontation.
Yeah.
So I'm talking the rebel talk, but there's been times where I've opted for the more quiet rebellion, I will say that.
We have a lot of thoughtful rebels here.
Yeah, thoughtful rebels. Maybe that's what it is.
I feel like that would be like a really good thing for like a t-shirt. Like, I'm a thoughtful rebel.
Let's
Rebel
make it
with
big.
a cause.
Rebel with a cause.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, guys. T-shirts.
Yes.
If you want to see merch from us, then let us know.
All of our 5 listeners.
We're gonna have our Cool Girl Talks Rebel with a Cause t-shirts out real soon. Well, I guess that Emma, you haven't answered the question.
Yeah, come on.
Are you a rebel?
Am I a rebel? You know what? I would love to be a rebel. I think that's a huge ideal in my head, but no, I am such a rule follower. I don't do anything that's... I never snuck out of the house when I was a teen, Mostly because my mom would have been fine with me going anyway. So there was nothing to rebel against.
Yeah, that's
She was like good with it. So yeah, no, I'm not really a rebel in that way. But I agree with a lot of what you said, Kate, about like, being a rebel in the feminist way, then yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because what is feminism if not the
Absolutely.
ultimate rebellion? So on that note, thank you so much for listening, our 5 listeners.
Oh, you guys think
I
you're
didn't
only
mean to
having 5
target you
listeners with me as a special guest?
That's really why we brought you here.
Yeah.
Have to see
up
how
the
many
listener
Facebook
count.
friends I have.
I knew you were famous and you would tweet it and get it retweeted by our famous prof, so... Special thank you to Sammy Walton, who will be editing, or is our editor, and Abby, our social media director, and usually transcribes all of our podcasts. And a very special thank you to Caroline, our special guest rebel this
Thanks for having me on, you
episode.
guys.
So this has been a Cool Girl Talks, her campus podcast out of the University of Victoria.
Cheers to that.